Imagine waking up on your 40th birthday. You pour your coffee, look at your bank account, and realize something that defies everything you have ever been taught about personal finance. You realize that you never have to save another penny for retirement. Not a single cent. You can spend every dollar you earn from your job on your mortgage, your vacations, your kids, or good wine, and you will still retire a millionaire at 65. This isn't a lottery win, and it is not an inheritance. It is a mathematical tipping point called coast fire. Most people spend their entire lives grinding to save 50% of their income because they think the finish line is a specific dollar amount. But the math says the finish line is actually a date. And if you have enough invested by that date, gravity takes over. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to calculate if you have already crossed that line without even knowing it. If you are new here, I am Tom, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time taking complex financial models and breaking them down into things we can actually use on a Tuesday afternoon. We are going to walk through the exact formulas, no spreadsheets required, just logic, to figure out your coast number. This might be the highest ROI 30 minutes you spend this year, because realizing you are done saving is a lot cheaper than continuing to save for a finish line you already passed. If you want to see more deep dives like this, do me a favor and subscribe. It helps the channel, but more importantly, it helps you stop trading time for money unnecessarily. Let's get into the numbers. Let's start with the myth we all live by. Traditional financial advice operates on a scarcity mindset. It tells you that retirement is a massive, scary number, let's say $2 million, and you are currently at zero, or maybe 100,000. The gap between where you are and where you need to be feels impossible, so the advice is always the same. Save more, cut coupons, stop drinking lattes, and hustle until you are 65. The assumption is that you must actively push the boulder up the hill every single day until the very moment you retire. If you stop pushing, the boulder rolls back down and crushes you. That is the traditional fire path too. Financial independence, retire early, usually demands extreme sacrifice to hit your full number as fast as possible so you can quit working entirely. But that model ignores the most powerful force in finance, which is time. Coast fire changes the physics of that boulder. The core idea is that your money works harder than you do, but only after it reaches a critical mass. Think of your portfolio like a snowball. At the beginning, you have to pack the snow with your bare hands. It is slow, cold work. That is your early career savings. But coast fire is the moment you push that snowball over the edge of a very long hill. Once it goes over the edge, you don't need to add more snow. The hill, which is compound interest over time, adds the snow for you. The math is simply calculating how big the snowball needs to be before you can let go. If you have enough invested at age 30 or 40, and you just let it sit there growing at 7% annually, it will grow into your full retirement number by age 65 all on its own. You are coasting on the momentum of your past decisions. Here is why most people fail to use this strategy even when they have the money. It feels incredibly reckless to stop saving. We are conditioned to equate saving money with being responsible. If I tell you that at age 40 you can stop contributing to your 401k and spend that cash on a better car or a sabbatical, your brain screams, danger. We are wired to hoard resources because we fear the future. But coast fire isn't about being reckless, it is about being precise. It is realizing that oversaving has a cost too. The cost is the life you are not living today because you are dumping money into an account that is already destined to be full. It is the financial equivalent of continuing to fill a gas tank that is already overflowing. You aren't getting further down the road, you are just making a mess. So, the solution requires us to execute two specific calculations. First, we need to know exactly what full looks like for you. That is, your traditional FIRE number. Second, we need to calculate the present value of that number based on your age. This is where the magic happens. We are going to run the compound interest formula backwards. Instead of asking, what will my savings be worth in 20 years, we ask, how much do I need today so that it becomes $2 million in 20 years without me touching it? Once you have that number, you have a new goalpost. And I promise you, that goalpost is a lot closer than you think. Let's look at the first step, defining the destination. Before we calculate your number, I need to drop a reality check that ruins most people's planning. If you think $1 million is your target, you are probably wrong. $1 million in 25 years will not buy what $1 million buys today. Inflation is the silent killer of retirement planning. If we have average inflation of 3%, in 25 years, you will need $2 million just to buy what 1 million buys right now. So when we do this math, we have a choice. We can either adjust our expected returns down to account for inflation using real returns, or we can inflate our target number up. To keep this simple and clean, we are going to use real returns, meaning the growth of your money after inflation is accounted for. This lets us think in today's dollars, which is the only way our brains can actually process value. Step 1 is finding your traditional FIRE number. This is the total pot of money you need at age 65 to never work again. The standard rule of thumb here is the 4% rule. The theory goes that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio in the first year of retirement, adjust for inflation annually, and likely never run out of money. To find this number, you take your desired annual retirement spending and divide it by 0.04. Or, an easier way to do the mental math is just to take your annual spending and multiply it by 25. If you want to spend $50,000 a year in retirement, 50,000 times 25 is $1.25 million. That is your finish line. Now be careful with that spending input. Most people just use their current salary, but that is a mistake. In retirement, you likely won't have a mortgage, you won't be saving for retirement anymore, which removes a huge chunk of your budget. You won't have commuting costs. On the flip side, healthcare might cost more. For the sake of our example today, let's stick with that $50,000 annual spend. In many parts of the world, a paid-off house and 50 grand a year provides a very comfortable middle-class life. So, we are locking in our target, $1.25 million. That is the mountain. Traditional advice says you need to climb that whole mountain. Coastfire asks, how far up the mountain do I need to carry you before I can drop you off and let the ski lift take you the rest of the way? I should mention that the 4% rule is a guideline, not a law of physics. Some conservative investors prefer a 3.5% withdrawal rate, which means multiplying your spending by 33. Others are comfortable with 4.5%. But the math we are doing today works regardless of your multiplier. The key is just having that firm future value number. If you don't know where you are going, you can't calculate the trajectory to get there. For our working example, we are locking in $1.25 million as the future value we need to hit by age 65. Now, let's find out how much of that we actually need to save ourselves. So, here is your homework for this section. Look at your bank statements from last year. How much did you actually spend to live? Not how much you earned, but how much went out the door to maintain your life. Now, subtract the costs that disappear in retirement, like mortgage principal or childcare. That is your number. Multiply it by 25. Write that number down on a sticky note and put it on your monitor. That is the future value. Now, we are going to apply the discount factor to see what that number costs in today's money. Here is the part where most people lose $50,000 without realizing it. They keep saving aggressively past their coast number because more is better, right? Wrong. Money has diminishing returns on your happiness. If you have already hit your coast number, but you keep grinding at a job you hate to add more to the pile, you are trading the prime years of your life, your 40s and 50s, for extra money in your 80s that you probably won't have the energy to spend. The math I am about to show you isn't just about money. It is about reclaiming your time. If you overshoot the coast number, you aren't winning. You are just overpaying for insurance you might not need. Let's see exactly how much you need right now to stop the grind. We are now moving to step 2, the coast formula. We know the compound interest formula. Present value times 1 plus the rate to the power of time equals future value. We just need to rearrange it. We are solving for present value, so the formula becomes your FIRE number divided by 1 plus your return rate to the power of years remaining. Let's plug in our variables. Our FIRE number is 1.25 million. Our return rate is a crucial assumption. The stock market historically returns about 10%, but after inflation, it's closer to 7%. Since we are using today's dollars, we use that 7% real return. And let's assume you are 40 years old, targeting retirement at 65. That gives us 25 years of growth. Let's run the math. 1.07 raised to the 25th power is roughly 5.4. That is your growth multiple. It means every dollar you have today will turn into $5.40 by the time you are 65. So, we take our target, 1.25 million, and divide it by 5.4. The result? $230,000, roughly. Some calculators will give you 276,000 depending on the decimal precision, but the ballpark is the same. If you are 40 years old and you have roughly $275,000 invested in a diversified portfolio, you are done. You can stop saving for retirement today. The compound growth at 7% will carry that pot to 1.25 million by age 65 without you adding another dime. Now, I know what the skeptics are thinking. Tom, what if the market doesn't return 7%? That is a valid fear. If returns are lower, you need more money up front. If we drop the assumption to a conservative 5% real return, the math changes. 1.05 to the 25th power is about 3.4. 1.25 million divided by 3.4 puts your coast number closer to $370,000. So, the range for a 40-year-old wanting a middle-class retirement is somewhere between $275,000 and $375,000. That is a lot of money, yes, but it is a lot less than the $1 million people think they need to feel secure. So what does this mean operationally? It means if you have that $250,000 nest egg at 40, your paycheck changes. Let's say you earn $80,000 a year and you are saving $20,000 of it for retirement. The day you hit Coast Fire, that $20,000 is suddenly unlocked. You can use it to work fewer hours, taking a pay cut to $60,000. Or you can keep the job and blow that $20,000 on travel. Or you can switch to a lower stress career that only pays $60,000. The requirement to save for the future is gone. You only need to earn enough to cover your current lifestyle. You are no longer building wealth. You are just maintaining your existence while your portfolio builds the wealth in the background. This leads us to the most important chart you will ever visualize. It's the multiplier by age. The reason Coast Fire works so well at 40 is good, but if you are 30, it is absolutely explosive. Remember our multiple at age 40? It was about 5.4 times. But if you are 30, you have 35 years to grow. The multiple jumps to over 10. Every dollar invested at 30 is worth $10 at 65. If you are 25, you have 40 years. The multiple is 15. This is why the Coast number for a 25-year-old is shockingly low. To hit that same $1.25 million target, a 25-year-old only needs about $85,000 invested. If you hustle in your early 20s and hit 85 grand, you could theoretically never save for retirement again for the rest of your life. That is the power of front-loading. Let's go back to our 40-year-old protagonist. Let's call him Dave. Dave has been maxing out his 401k and IRA since he was 30. He has managed to scrape together $300,000. He hates his corporate job. He wants to become a carpenter, but carpentry only pays enough to cover his bills, not to save for retirement. Under traditional rules, Dave is stuck. He is far from a millionaire. But under Coast rules, Dave is actually overfunded. His Coast number for a $50,000 retirement is $276,000. He has $300,000. He has already won. He just doesn't know it. He can quit the corporate job tomorrow, take the carpentry gig, save $0 per month, and statistically, he will still arrive at age 65 with his full retirement outcome secured. Because Dave has $300,000 and he only needed $276,000, he has a safety buffer of $24,000. This buffer is crucial. It protects him against that sequence of returns risk we mentioned earlier. If the market drops 10% next year, Dave is still roughly on track. This illustrates the Coast Fire mindset. It isn't about hitting the number to the penny and quitting instantly. It is about hitting the number, maybe padding it by 10% for peace of mind, and then drastically altering your life. It changes the question from, how do I get rich, to, how do I want to spend my days? The hardest part for Dave won't be the math. It will be the guilt. When you have spent a decade seeing your net worth climb because of your contributions, seeing it flatten out, or only grow slowly by market returns, feels like failure. You lose the dopamine hit of the monthly deposit. You have to trust the invisible hand of the market. I have spoken to people who hit Coast Fire and kept saving anyway because they couldn't shake the scarcity mindset. They ended up with 3 times more money than they needed and a lot of regret about the vacations they didn't take. Trusting the math is an emotional discipline. You have to be willing to look at a flat savings rate and define it as success. If you want to be Dave, here is the protocol. Open a spreadsheet. Column A is years, 1 to 25. Column B is your portfolio balance. Set the formula to grow the previous year by 7%. If the final cell at year 25 is larger than your FIRE number, you are done. If it is smaller, you are not Coast Fire yet. But you can calculate exactly how much longer you need to save. Usually, people find they are only 3 or 4 years away from Coast Fire, even if they are 15 years away from traditional fire. That creates a light at the end of the tunnel that is actually visible. We have to address the risks before you hand in your resignation letter. The biggest risk is lifestyle creep. We assumed Dave spends $50,000 a year forever. But what if Dave develops expensive taste? What if he wants a boat at age 50? If his spending requirement jumps to $80,000, his FIRE number jumps to $2 million, and his Coast number at age 40 jumps to $450,000. He is suddenly underfunded again. Coast Fire assumes your lifestyle is relatively fixed. If you haven't mastered your spending, you cannot master your time. This strategy requires a cap on your desires. If you can't commit to a spending cap, you can't commit to coasting. Coast FIRE is not about never working again. It is about never needing to save again. It decouples your labour from your future security. It turns your job from a vehicle for the future into a vehicle for the present. That is a profound shift. It allows you to take risks, start businesses, or just work less, knowing that your old man or old woman self is already taken care of by the money you saved in your 30s. The math is simple algebra. The execution is simple discipline. The result is freedom, decades earlier than you expected. I want to know where you stand on this. Does the idea of stopping contributions at 40 feel liberating to you, or does it feel terrifying? Drop a comment below with your Coast number. No need to share your actual net worth, just the target you are aiming for. It helps everyone see what the norms are. If you found this breakdown useful, hit the like button so the algorithm shows it to more people who are oversaving and underliving. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.